Hi, my very beautiful and loving family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. With arms wide open and a heart full of boundless love, I welcome each and every one of you back to our special corner of warmth and joy. My dearest family, seeing you all return fills my heart with indescribable happiness. Like gentle rays of morning sunlight spreading their golden embrace across the earth, let our love for each other illuminate this precious moment we share. Your presence here is the most beautiful gift, each of you bringing your own unique light that makes our family circle glow ever brighter. Before we embark on today's heartwarming journey together, let us join hands in spirit for a prayer of peace and love. Dearest Heavenly Father, like a gentle breeze that carries whispers of love, let your peace float into every heart here today. Wrap each precious soul in your tender embrace. Fill our homes with laughter that echoes like sweet music, and let love flow like honey between us. Watch over our beloved family as we share this blessed time together. Amen. My cherished family, if your hearts are dancing with joy, and your souls are finding peace in our precious moments together, please share your love by commenting "yes" below. Each yes is like a warm embrace, telling me that our hearts beat as one in this beautiful journey we share. With hearts intertwined and souls connected by threads of pure love, shall we begin our story, my treasured family? The setting sun painted golden streaks across Devon Henry's penthouse office, casting long shadows that danced across Italian marble floors. At 45, he cut an impressive figure against the backdrop of the city he'd helped shape. Tall, broad-shouldered, with keen, dark eyes that could pierce through any business proposal's weaknesses. His custom-tailored suit couldn't quite hide the athletic build, maintained through pre-dawn workouts, his only reliable companion through years of solitude. The corner office on the 60th floor of Henry Technologies headquarters told a story of success, but also of isolation. Modern art pieces worth millions adorned the walls, each selected not by Devon, but by his interior decorator. The only personal touch was a worn chess piece, a black king, that sat on his desk, a reminder of his father's last gift before passing away. Devon's fingers traced the edge of yet another declined dinner invitation, this one embossed with the family crest of the Blackwoods' Silicon Valley royalty. Their daughter, Aria, had been not so subtly pursuing him for months. The invitation joined a growing pile in his custom-made wastepaper basket, each representing another attempt by society's elite to capture his attention and his fortune. "Mr. Henry," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, interrupting his thoughts. "Your mother called again about the charity gala next week. She insists on confirming your +1. A familiar tension crept into his shoulders. These society events had become an increasingly frequent source of anxiety. His mother, Eleanor Henry, had made it her mission to see him properly settled before her 70th birthday. That deadline was approaching with alarming speed. Devon rose from his desk, moving to stand before the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below him, a maze of lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. His empire, built from the ground up, started with a single revolutionary app he'd coded in his garage. Now, Henry Technologies was at the forefront of artificial intelligence and medical technology, employing thousands and changing lives globally. Yet success had come at a price. Each step up the corporate ladder had meant less time for personal connections. Each business triumph had added another brick to the wall he'd built around his heart. His natural shyness, carefully masked in business settings by meticulous preparation and practiced confidence, emerged full force in personal interactions. The memory of last month's disaster at the Silicon Valley Innovation Awards made him cringe. Victoria Blake, the supermodel who'd graced countless magazine covers, had cornered him by the champagne fountain. Her perfume had been overwhelming, her intention clear in every calculated movement. When she'd leaned in close, whispered something about destiny. He'd panicked. "You remind me of my sister," he'd blurted out, then fled the scene, leaving behind a stunned Victoria and countless witnessing smartphones. The fact that he was an only child only made the incident more mortifying. By morning, it had become social media fodder, with memes spreading faster than his PR team could contain them. Marcus Reynolds, his CFO and childhood friend, found the whole thing hilarious. "The great Devon Henry," he teased the next day, "the man who can stare down hostile takeovers without blinking, turns into a stammering teenager around a pretty face." The truth stung because it was accurate. Devon could command a boardroom full of sharks, negotiate multi-billion-dollar deals, and navigate the treacherous waters of corporate politics. But put him in a romantic situation, and he reverted to that awkward teenager who'd spent prom night debugging code in his parents' basement. His phone buzzed. Another message from his mother. Eleanor Henry was a force of nature, a former debutante who'd married into old money and never quite approved of her son's tech industry success. She preferred the traditional paths to wealth: real estate, banking, inherited trust funds. The fact that her only son had chosen to build his fortune through computer code remained a source of gentle disappointment. "Darling," her message read, "I've invited the Chandlers to sit at our table for the gala. Their daughter Madison just returned from Paris. She's studying art history at the Sorbonne. Absolutely charming girl." Devon could picture Madison already, another perfectly polished socialite with a carefully curated personality and designs on his fortune. Like all the others, she would laugh at his jokes, even the bad ones, touch his arm at precisely calculated intervals, and find ways to mention her family's connections to European nobility. The sun had almost disappeared now, leaving the city bathed in the soft purple light of dusk. Devon loosened his tie, allowing himself a moment of vulnerability in the privacy of his office. At 45, he had everything money could buy, except the one thing he truly wanted: someone who could see past the fortune, past the Forbes magazine covers, past the carefully constructed facade of corporate success. His father's words echoed in his memory. "Son, all the money in the world won't keep you warm at night." James Henry had been a practical man, an accountant who'd married for love and never regretted it for a moment. He'd passed away 5 years ago, leaving Devon with the chess piece and a lifetime of unheeded advice about the importance of personal connections. The intercom buzzed again. "Mr. Henry, the board meeting materials for tomorrow are ready for your review, and Dr. Patel from R&D needs your signature on the new medical imaging project proposals." Work, his constant companion, his reliable escape. Devon straightened his tie and returned to his desk. The stack of papers requiring his attention had grown in the brief time he'd spent lost in thought. Each document represented another step forward for his company, another achievement to add to his impressive resume. Yet none of them could fill the growing emptiness he felt in quiet moments like these. As he began reviewing the first document, his eye caught a small news alert on his tablet. The medical division was hiring new researchers for their groundbreaking cancer treatment project. Normally, he left staffing decisions to the department heads, but something made him pause and scroll through the announcement. Little did he know that this small moment, this tiny deviation from his routine, would set in motion events that would transform his life forever. But that was still to come. For now, Devon Henry, the shy billionaire, returned to his comfortable world of spreadsheets and corporate strategies, unaware that fate had already begun weaving a new pattern into the tapestry of his life. The night stretched ahead, filled with work and solitude, as it had countless times before. But somewhere in the city, a young doctor named Teniola Bessie was preparing for her first day at Henry Technologies, blissfully unaware that she was about to turn the carefully ordered world of Devon Henry upside down. The office gradually emptied as night fell, leaving Devon alone with his thoughts and the gentle hum of the climate control system. He worked late, as usual, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm of business decisions and project approvals. Yet something felt different tonight. A subtle shift in the atmosphere, like the quiet before a storm. Perhaps it was the approaching gala weighing on his mind, or his mother's increasingly persistent matchmaking attempts. Or perhaps it was something else entirely, a premonition of change that he couldn't quite grasp. Whatever it was, it kept him at his desk long after his usual departure time, until the city lights below blurred into a glittering carpet of stars brought down to earth. When he finally gathered his things to leave, the night security guard nodded respectfully, used to the CEO's unconventional hours. The private elevator hummed softly as it carried him down to the underground parking garage where his Aston Martin waited. The car, like everything else in his life, was a symbol of success rather than a source of joy, chosen for its prestige rather than any personal preference. As he drove through the quiet streets toward his penthouse apartment, Devon allowed himself to imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like to have someone waiting for him at home. Someone to share his thoughts with, someone who would understand both his strengths and his vulnerabilities, someone who would love Devon the man, not Devon the billionaire. But such thoughts were dangerous, leading only to discontent. He pushed them aside as he had countless times before, focusing instead on tomorrow's challenges. Yet even as he prepared for bed in his luxurious but lonely apartment, a small voice in his heart whispered that perhaps, just perhaps, it was time for a change. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and, though he didn't know it yet, a chance encounter that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and his own capacity for happiness. But for now, Devon Henry, the man behind the empire, drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the trappings of success, but dreaming of something more. The city continued its endless dance of lights and shadows outside his window, indifferent to the quiet longings of one man's heart. Yet somewhere in that sprawling metropolis, destiny was already in motion, preparing to prove that even the most carefully constructed walls can crumble in the face of true love. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Encounter. The morning sun streamed through the towering glass windows of Henry Technologies' Medical Research Division, casting prismatic patterns across the polished floors. Dr. Teniola Bessie smoothed her pencil skirt nervously as she followed the HR director through the maze of corridors. Her first day at one of the world's most prestigious medical research facilities had already started with chaos. A traffic accident had delayed her arrival by 30 minutes. "The research wing is through here," the director explained, checking her tablet. "We'll need to stop by security first for your permanent ID badge. The temporary one only gets you through the main entrance." Teniola nodded, taking in every detail of her new workplace. The building itself was a marvel of modern architecture, all sleek lines and innovative design. Every surface gleamed with promise, from the interactive wall displays showing real-time research data to the state-of-the-art laboratory equipment visible through glass walls. Her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. After years of dedicated study and research, landing this position felt like a dream come true. The Henry Technologies Medical Division was pioneering breakthrough treatments in regenerative medicine, and their latest project, the one she'd been hired to lead, could revolutionize cardiac care. As they rounded a corner, Teniola's heel caught on the edge of a decorative rug. She stumbled, trying to regain her balance, but momentum carried her forward into an antique display case. Time seemed to slow as she watched in horror as a beautiful chess set, each piece carved from what appeared to be ivory and ebony, began to topple. The pieces scattered across the floor with what seemed like deliberately dramatic flair, rolling in every direction. The sound of precious artifacts hitting marble drew attention from nearby offices, including to her mortification, the corner office with its impressive double doors. Those doors opened, and Teniola's heart nearly stopped. Devon Henry himself stood in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space with an unexpected presence. She'd seen his photos in business magazines and news articles, but they hadn't captured the quiet intensity of his dark eyes or the subtle air of vulnerability that seemed to contradict his powerful position. She waited for the anger, the disappointment, the cold corporate dismissal she'd witnessed too many times in previous workplaces. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Devon Henry laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle or a forced pleasantry. It was genuine laughter that transformed his entire face, softening the serious lines into something unexpectedly warm and approachable. The sound seemed to surprise even him, as though he hadn't heard it himself in quite some time. "I've been wanting to rearrange that display for years," he said, stepping forward to help gather the scattered pieces, "though I admit this wasn't quite the method I had in mind." Teniola found herself smiling despite her embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Henry. It's my first day, and I was hoping to make a good impression, though perhaps not quite such a memorable one." Their hands met, reaching for the White Queen, and Devon's fingers trembled slightly before withdrawing. A faint blush colored his cheeks, visible even against his dark complexion. The HR director, watching this interaction with barely concealed interest, cleared her throat. "Mr. Henry, this is Dr. Teniola Bessie, our new head of cardiac regeneration research. Dr. Bessie, our CEO, Devon Henry." Devon stood, carefully placing the recovered chess pieces on a nearby table. "Welcome to Henry Technologies, Dr. Bessie. I've read your research on stem cell applications in cardiac tissue regeneration. Impressive work." Teniola blinked in surprise. CEOs didn't typically read detailed medical research papers, especially ones published in obscure scientific journals. "You've read my work." "I try to stay informed about all our divisions," he replied, then seemed to realize he was still holding the White Queen. He placed it carefully with the other pieces, his movements deliberately measured. "Though I admit, your paper on utilizing nanobots for targeted cell delivery kept me up half the night. Fascinating implications for future treatment protocols." The conversation flowed with unexpected ease, their shared enthusiasm for medical innovation breaking through initial awkwardness. Devon's knowledge impressed Teniola. This wasn't the superficial understanding of a businessman, but genuine comprehension of complex scientific principles. As they talked, Teniola noticed small details about him that the magazines had missed. The way he unconsciously straightened his tie when diving into technical details, how his eyes lit up when discussing potential medical applications, the slight hesitation before speaking, as though carefully choosing each word. The HR director's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. "Mr. Henry, your 9 o'clock board meeting." "Yes, of course," Devon said, reluctance evident in his voice. "Dr. Bessie, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. My door is always open for discussions about research advancement." As he turned to leave, Teniola called out, "Mr. Henry." He paused, looking back. "Thank you for not firing me over the chess set." That unexpected laugh returned, warming the corporate atmosphere. "Just promise to warn me next time you plan to redecorate. Though I must admit, the chaos suits it better than the perfect alignment did." Throughout the rest of her orientation tour, Teniola found her thoughts drifting back to that encounter. There was something about Devon Henry that didn't fit the typical CEO mold. Behind the power suit and corporate authority, she glimpsed someone different, someone who shared her passion for innovation and helping others. The HR director seemed to read her thoughts. "Mr. Henry isn't what people expect," she said, as they waited for the elevator. "Most assume he's just another billionaire playboy, but he's different. Brilliant, of course, but also surprisingly shy. Last month, at the Innovation Awards..." She stopped herself. "Well, let's just say he surprises people." The day progressed in a whirlwind of introductions, paperwork, and laboratory tours. Henry Technologies' research facilities exceeded even Teniola's high expectations. Every piece of equipment was cutting edge, every system optimized for breakthrough research. It was a scientist's paradise. Late afternoon found her in the executive break room, searching for coffee to combat the day's overwhelming nature. The machine, some high-tech European model, proved more challenging than any medical equipment she'd encountered. "The trick is to press the buttons in the right sequence," a familiar voice said behind her. "Like a combination lock, but with caffeine as the reward." Devon Henry stood in the doorway, his tie slightly loosened after a day of meetings. Something about the casual moment made him seem more approachable than during their morning encounter. He stepped forward, demonstrating the coffee machine's peculiarities. 3 taps for espresso, 2 for Americano, and if you hold this button while pressing that one, you get something that claims to be macchiato but tastes more like liquid ambition. Teniola laughed, surprising both of them. Liquid ambition seems appropriate for this place. Their fingers brushed as he handed her the finished coffee, and that same slight tremor returned to his hands. A drop of coffee spilled, leaving a small stain on his pristine white shirt. "I should—" He gestured vaguely toward his office, already backing toward the door. "Reports to review. Welcome again, Dr. Bessie." She watched him leave, noting how his confident stride faltered slightly when passing other employees. It was as though he wore his corporate persona like armor, but underneath was someone far more intriguing. The rest of the week passed in a blur of activity. Teniola immersed herself in her new role, meeting her research team and beginning to outline their project goals. She noticed that Devon seemed to find reasons to pass by the research division more frequently than strictly necessary, though he rarely stepped inside. Sometimes their eyes would meet through the glass walls, and something unspoken passed between them. A recognition of kindred spirits, perhaps, or something deeper neither was ready to acknowledge. Friday afternoon, she was working late in the lab when a gentle knock interrupted her concentration. Devon stood in the doorway, holding what appeared to be takeout containers. "I noticed your car in the garage," he said, his usual corporate confidence replaced by something more hesitant. "I thought, that is, I ordered dinner, and there's too much for one person, if you're interested. In sharing. The food, I mean." Teniola felt warmth spread through her chest at his endearing awkwardness. "I'd like that," she said simply. They ended up in his office, spreading Chinese food across his usually immaculate desk. Conversation flowed naturally, moving from work to more personal topics. Devon spoke about his father, who'd encouraged his early interest in technology. Teniola shared stories about her medical school days and her dreams of changing lives through research. As night fell over the city, casting his office in soft shadows, something shifted between them. The corporate hierarchy faded, leaving just 2 people sharing hopes, fears, and spring rolls. "I should confess something," Devon said, carefully folding an empty wrapper. "I requested your transfer to our research division personally after reading your papers. Your approach to medical innovation, it aligned perfectly with my father's vision for this company. He always said technology should serve humanity, not the other way around." Teniola sat back, surprised. "Is that unusual, for you to be involved in hiring decisions?" "Very," he admitted. "I usually leave that to department heads, but something about your research, it felt important. Though I didn't expect—" He trailed off, color rising in his cheeks. "Didn't expect what?" "You," he said simply. "I didn't expect you." The moment hung between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then Devon's phone buzzed, his mother requesting his RSVP for yet another social event, and the spell broke. They cleaned up dinner in comfortable silence, both aware that something had changed. As Teniola gathered her things to leave, Devon spoke again. Dr. Bessie Teniola, would you, that is, there's a charity gala next week for medical research funding. Would you consider attending? As a representative of our research division, of course. She smiled, recognizing the invitation for what it was, a tentative step toward something more. I'd be honored, Mr. Henry. Devon, he corrected softly. Please, call me Devon. As she drove home that night, Teniola realized that her life had shifted in unexpected ways. She'd come to Henry Technologies seeking professional advancement, but found something far more intriguing. A brilliant man whose shy smile and genuine passion for innovation had begun to capture her heart. The city lights blurred past her car window, each one seeming to hold a promise of possibilities to come. In her mind, she could still see Devon's face as he'd said her name, the way his usual corporate mask had slipped to reveal something real and vulnerable beneath. She thought about the chess piece she'd knocked over that first day, the white queen that had brought their hands together in that first electric touch. Sometimes the most meaningful connections began with chaos, with scattered pieces that needed to be gathered and reassembled into something new and beautiful. Monday would bring new challenges, new projects, and new moments between them. But for now, Teniola drove through the night, her heart full of unexpected joy and the lingering warmth of shared spring rolls and gentle confessions. Somewhere across the city, Devon Henry stood at his penthouse window, watching the same night sky and thinking of a brilliant doctor whose laughter had awakened something long dormant in his heart. For the first time in years, the prospect of a charity gala didn't fill him with dread. Instead, he felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest, hope, perhaps, or the beginning of something even more profound. The chess set in his office, now slightly imperfect in its arrangement, stood as a testament to how sometimes the most beautiful things in life came from unexpected moments of chaos. The white queen, slightly scratched from its fall, caught the moonlight and seemed to glow with possibility. Chapter 3. Coffee and Coincidences. The executive break room became their unspoken sanctuary, a neutral ground where corporate hierarchies dissolved into the steam of perfectly brewed coffee. Devon found himself developing an unprecedented addiction to caffeine, his schedule mysteriously aligning with Teniola's lunch breaks. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow across the marble countertops. Devon adjusted his tie, watching his reflection in the chrome of the espresso machine. His heart quickened at the sound of approaching footsteps. He'd memorized the rhythm of her walk, the confident click of heels against polished floors. Teniola appeared in the doorway, her lab coat exchanged for an elegant blazer that emphasized her graceful figure. Their eyes met in the reflection of the coffee machine, and Devon felt that now familiar flutter in his chest. Her presence had a way of making the vast break room feel intimate, as though they existed in their own private world. "Mr. Henry," she greeted him, a playful smile touching her lips. "Another coffee emergency." "Dr. Bessie," he returned, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I'm beginning to think this machine only works properly under your supervision." She moved closer, the subtle scent of her perfume making his pulse race. "Funny how these technological crises always seem to coincide with my breaks." Their daily dance had become the subject of gentle office gossip. The mighty CEO, known for his reclusiveness, suddenly developed an insatiable need for coffee at precisely 1:15 p.m. each day. The cleaning staff noticed the break room's espresso consumption had tripled, though most cups remained half full. Marcus, ever observant, had taken to scheduling his own breaks to coincide with their encounters, watching with barely concealed amusement as his childhood friend struggled to maintain his corporate composure. Today, however, something was different. The air between them felt charged with unspoken possibilities. Devon found himself mesmerized by the graceful movement of her hands as she operated the coffee machine, the way she tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, the subtle curve of her neck as she concentrated on the task. Their conversations had evolved from polite small talk to something more meaningful. They discussed everything from the latest medical research to their favorite books, discovering shared passions and complementary perspectives. Devon found himself sharing thoughts he'd never voiced aloud, while Teniola's infectious enthusiasm for her work brought out a side of him few had ever seen. As she reached for the sugar, their hands brushed. The contact sent electricity through Devon's body, causing him to jerk slightly. His coffee cup tipped, sending hot liquid cascading down his pristine white shirt. Time seemed to slow as they both watched the brown stain spread. "Oh!" Teniola grabbed napkins from the counter. "Here, let me help." Her proximity as she dabbed at his shirt made Devon's head spin. The subtle scent of her perfume mingled with the rich aroma of coffee. His heart thundered so loudly he was certain she must hear it. Their faces were inches apart, and he could see flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "I dot," Devon's voice caught in his throat. The corporate mask he'd worn for so long cracked, revealing the vulnerable man beneath. "I should." But he couldn't move, couldn't step away from this moment, from her. Teniola's hands stilled on his chest, and their eyes met. The world beyond the break room ceased to exist. Then Marcus's voice shattered the spell. "Devon, the Tokyo investors are on line 1. Reality crashed back in. Devon stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a chair in his haste to put distance between them. "I should change," he managed, then fled the break room, leaving Teniola holding coffee-stained napkins. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls, but Devon couldn't focus. The memory of her touch, the warmth in her eyes, the way time had seemed to stop, it all haunted him. He found himself staring at the coffee stain on his shirt, now hidden beneath his suit jacket, a tangible reminder of their moment. Evening found him in his office, tie loosened, jacket discarded. The city lights twinkled beyond his windows, but he saw only her face reflected in the glass. A gentle knock at his door made him turn. Teniola stood in the doorway, holding his suit jacket. "You left this in the break room," she said softly. Devon rose from his desk, moving toward her with an almost magnetic pull. The office lights had dimmed for the evening, casting everything in gentle shadows. She'd changed back into her lab coat, but her hair was down now, falling in soft waves around her face. "Thank you," he managed, taking the jacket. Their fingers brushed again, but this time neither pulled away. The contact lingered, electric and inevitable. "Devon," she whispered, using his first name for the first time. The sound of it on her lips made his heart skip. They stood there, suspended in time, the jacket forgotten between them. All his carefully constructed walls, the defenses built over years of isolation, crumbled in the face of her gentle presence. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, voice rough with emotion. "I've spent so long hiding behind spreadsheets and corporate strategies, but with you, with me, with you, I don't want to hide anymore." The confession hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Teniola stepped closer, and Devon could see the same vulnerability reflected in her eyes. "Then don't," she said simply. The moment stretched, filled with infinite possibility. Devon's hand trembled as he reached up to touch her cheek, his fingers ghosting across her skin with reverent gentleness. A security guard's footsteps in the hallway broke the spell. They stepped apart, both breathing heavily, aware of the lines they'd nearly crossed. "I should go," Teniola said, though she made no move to leave. "Early meeting tomorrow." Devon nodded, unable to trust his voice. She turned to go, then paused in the doorway. "Devon?" "Yes. I like seeing you without the corporate mask." She disappeared into the darkened hallway, leaving Devon standing in his office, heart racing, skin tingling where he'd touched her. The city continued its endless dance beyond his windows, but his world had shifted on its axis. That night, as he lay in his bed, unable to sleep, Devon realized something had fundamentally changed. The careful walls he'd built around his heart were crumbling, and for the first time in his adult life, he didn't want to rebuild them. His phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. "You've got it bad, my friend." Devon didn't bother denying it. Instead, he found himself smiling at the ceiling, replaying every moment of their encounter. The coffee spill that had started as an embarrassment had become something precious, a crack in his armor that let light shine through. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments of vulnerability and connection. But for tonight, Devon Henry, the man who had everything except love, fell asleep with the ghost of her touch on his skin and hope blooming in his heart. In her own apartment across the city, Teniola sat at her window, a cold cup of coffee forgotten on the sill. She thought about the way Devon's corporate facade had cracked, revealing the gentle soul beneath. Her fingers tingled where they'd touched his, and her heart danced with possibilities. The night stretched on, full of dreams and whispered hopes, as two souls who had found each other across a crowded break room began to realize that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in research labs or boardrooms, but in the quiet moments between two hearts learning to trust again. Chapter 4. Office Conspiracies. Marcus Reynolds couldn't take it anymore. Watching his best friend and CEO pine like a lovesick teenager was equal parts entertaining and frustrating. The office had noticed their leader's sudden interest in perfectly timed coffee breaks, and the betting pool for when he'd finally asked Dr. Bessie out had grown to impressive proportions. "You're like teenagers passing notes in class," Marcus told Devon during a late-night strategy session. The CEO's eyes had drifted, for the 10th time that hour, toward the still-lit research lab where Teniola worked late. Devon straightened in his chair, attempting to regain his professional composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please," Marcus snorted, closing the quarterly report they were supposed to be reviewing. "You've worn that coffee-stained shirt 3 times this week. The Devon Henry I know would have burned it and ordered a dozen replacements." A faint blush colored Devon's cheeks as his hand unconsciously touched the spot where the stain remained, barely visible under his jacket. The shirt had become a secret treasure, a tangible reminder of that electric moment in the break room. Operation Love in the Lab began the next morning. Marcus gathered key conspirators: Jenny from HR, who controlled room bookings, Carlos from maintenance, master of the building's environmental systems, and Sophie from the executive kitchen, who monitored the coffee supply with military precision. The plan started small. Convenient elevator malfunctions that forced Devon and Teniola to take the stairs together. Mysteriously double-booked meeting rooms that left them sharing the small conference space near the research lab. Strategic seating arrangements at company events that always seemed to place them side by side. Devon remained adorably oblivious to the matchmaking efforts swirling around him. His natural shyness around Teniola had begun to ease, replaced by something deeper, more meaningful. Their conversations flowed more freely now, ranging from passionate debates about medical technology to quiet sharing of personal dreams. Teniola, however, was far more perceptive. She noticed the pattern to the accidental encounters, the way certain doors would mysteriously lock behind them, forcing them to take longer routes through the building together. Rather than call out the conspiracy, she found herself charmed by both the office's efforts and Devon's endearing awkwardness. One particularly orchestrated afternoon, the air conditioning in the research lab mysteriously malfunctioned. The summer heat quickly made the space unbearable, forcing Teniola to relocate her work. Devon's office, with its separate cooling system, was the only available space. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," she said, settling into the comfortable chair across from his desk. The sight of her in his personal space, surrounded by the trappings of his corporate world, made Devon's heart race. "Never," he managed, trying to focus on the documents before him rather than the way sunlight played across her features. "I mean, you're welcome to stay as long as you need." Hours passed in comfortable productivity, broken by shared glances and soft smiles. Devon found himself hyper-aware of every movement she made, the gentle tap of her pen when deep in thought, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, the soft hum she made when solving a particularly challenging problem. As evening approached, Teniola stretched, her lab coat falling open to reveal an elegant blouse that complemented her dark skin perfectly. Devon's breath caught in his throat. "I should probably head home," she said, gathering her papers. "Thank you for sharing your space. Would you—" Devon started, then faltered. "That is, would you like to have dinner? To discuss the research, of course." A soft smile played at her lips. "Just the research?" "Well, perhaps." Devon tugged at his tie, gathering courage. "Perhaps we could discuss other things as well." The moment hung between them, filled with possibility. Then Devon's phone buzzed, his mother again, breaking the spell. Teniola gathered her things but paused at the door. "I'd like that, Devon. To discuss other things." After she left, Devon sat in his office, surrounded by her lingering presence. The corporate mask he'd worn for so long felt increasingly uncomfortable, like a suit he'd outgrown. Around Teniola, he found himself wanting to be more, not just the successful CEO, but the man beneath the title. Meanwhile, in the security office, Carlos high-fived Jenny as they watched the scene unfold on the monitors. Operation Love in the Lab was proceeding exactly as planned. The next phase involved the upcoming charity gala. The planning committee, now fully invested in the romance blooming in their midst, arranged everything with careful precision. The seating chart was a masterpiece of strategic placement, ensuring Devon and Teniola would be close enough for conversation, but not so obvious as to raise suspicion. Sophie partnered with the caterers to ensure Teniola's favorite dessert would be served. The string quartet was briefed to play softer, romantic pieces whenever the pair came near. Even the lighting was carefully planned to create the perfect ambience for potential romance. Devon, still unaware of the elaborate schemes surrounding him, found himself looking forward to the gala for the first time in years. He'd chosen his tuxedo with unprecedented care and even allowed his personal shopper to update his usual conservative style with something more modern. The office conspirators watched with delight as their reserved CEO began showing subtle changes. His smiles came more frequently. The rigid schedule he'd maintained for years became more flexible, especially around lunchtime. He even started leaving work at reasonable hours, though few knew this was to catch glimpses of Teniola in the parking garage. Teniola, for her part, played along with the matchmaking while maintaining professional dignity. She noticed how Devon's eyes followed her movements, how he seemed to gravitate toward wherever she was in a room. Their conversations grew longer, deeper, filled with shared dreams and gentle teasing. One evening, as most employees had left for the day, Teniola worked late in the lab. Through the glass wall she could see Devon in his office, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up as he reviewed documents. The sight of him in this more relaxed state made her heart flutter. A maintenance issue forced her to visit his office, though she strongly suspected Carlos had engineered the situation. Devon looked up as she entered, and the warmth in his eyes made her breath catch. "Dr. Bessie," he said softly, her formal title now carrying a hint of playfulness. "Another technological crisis." "It seems our equipment has a mind of its own lately," she replied, settling into what had become her usual chair. "Almost as if it's conspiring against us." Devon's brow furrowed. Conspiring. Mmm, she hummed, enjoying his confusion. Haven't you noticed the pattern? Elevator malfunctions, double-booked rooms, climate control issues. Understanding dawned on Devon's face, followed by embarrassment. The staff, they've been playing matchmaker. Yes. Teniola's eyes sparkled with amusement. They're quite dedicated to the cause. Devon buried his face in his hands, but she could see the smile he tried to hide. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Don't be sorry, she said softly. Their hearts are in the right place. He looked up, meeting her gaze. The office lights had dimmed for the evening, casting everything in a gentle glow. And how do you feel about their efforts? Teniola stood, moving to perch on the edge of his desk. The motion brought her closer than they'd been since the coffee incident. I think, she said carefully, that sometimes people need a little push to see what's right in front of them. Devon's breath hitched as she reached out to straighten his crooked tie. The simple touch sent electricity through both of them. Teniola, he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. A security guard's flashlight beam swept past the office windows, reminding them of their public location. Teniola stood, smoothing her lab coat with slightly trembling hands. The gala is tomorrow night, she said, moving toward the door. Perhaps we can continue this conversation then. Somewhere less conspired about. Devon nodded, not trusting his voice. As she left, the scent of her perfume lingered, mixing with the evening air and the promise of tomorrow. In the security office, Carlos watched the scene unfold on his monitors and sent a group text to the other conspirators. Phase 1 complete. Tomorrow night, Operation Love in the Lab goes into full effect. The office buzzed with excitement the next day. Jenny from HR was seen carrying a garment bag to the executive bathroom, a backup dress for Teniola in case of any coffee-related accidents. Sophie had personally tested every champagne glass to ensure no lipstick smudges would mar the perfect moment. Even Marcus had contributed, scheduling a series of convenient interruptions that would force Devon and Teniola to seek quiet corners for conversation. Devon spent the day in a state of nervous anticipation. The coffee-stained shirt hung in his office like a good luck charm, reminding him of how a simple accident had started something extraordinary. Every time he passed the research lab, his heart did a little dance, hoping to catch a glimpse of Teniola. The conspirators watched their plan unfold with satisfaction. Love was blooming in the labs of Henry Technologies, and they had front-row seats to the show. Tomorrow's gala would be their masterpiece, an orchestrated evening of romance that would finally bring together the shy CEO and the brilliant doctor who had captured his heart. As night fell over the city, two hearts beat with anticipation for what tomorrow might bring. In his penthouse, Devon stood at his window, watching the lights below and dreaming of midnight blue evening gowns and stolen glances. Across town, Teniola sat at her vanity, fingering the delicate necklace she'd chosen for tomorrow, her mind full of gentle smiles and coffee-stained shirts. The office conspirators raised a virtual toast in their group chat to Operation Love in the Lab. May tomorrow night bring the happy ending our favorite couple deserves. The stage was set, the players were ready, and love was waiting in the wings. Tomorrow would bring new chances, new moments, and perhaps, if the conspirators had their way, the beginning of something beautiful. Chapter 5. The Gala Night. The annual charity gala transformed Henry Technologies' grand atrium into a glittering wonderland. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, while delicate flower arrangements perfumed the air with the scent of roses and jasmine. Devon stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, absently adjusting his bow tie for the 100th time. His reflection showed a man transformed. The new tuxedo, selected with unprecedented care, fit perfectly. Even his usually reserved style had been updated with subtle modern touches. a midnight blue accent to the black ensemble, a watch chosen to catch the light just so. Yet his eyes kept darting to the entrance, anticipation making his heart race. Marcus appeared at his side, champagne in hand. "Relax, my friend. You look like you're awaiting execution rather than a beautiful woman." "Is it that obvious?" Devon tugged at his collar, wondering if the room had always been this warm. "Only to everyone with eyes," Marcus chuckled. "Though I must say, the betting pool on whether you'll actually dance tonight has reached record levels." Devon's retort died in his throat as the crowd near the entrance shifted, and Teniola appeared. The midnight blue gown she wore seemed to capture starlight itself, flowing around her like liquid night. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, and a delicate necklace adorned her throat. But it was her smile, radiant and slightly shy, that took Devon's breath away. Their eyes met across the crowded space, and the world seemed to fade around them. Devon moved toward her as if drawn by an invisible force, barely registering the knowing smiles of his employees. "Doctor, Bessie," he managed, his voice rough with emotion. "You look extraordinary." A blush colored her cheeks. "Thank you, Mr. Henry. You clean up quite well yourself." The formal titles felt strange now, almost playful given all that had passed between them. Devon offered his arm, and Teniola placed her hand in the crook of his elbow. The contact sent electricity through both of them. "Would you care to take a turn around the room?" he asked, finding courage in her warm presence. "I should warn you, though, according to Marcus, there's quite a bet riding on whether I'll dance tonight." Teniola's laugh was like music. "Well, we wouldn't want to disappoint your employees, would we?" The string quartet began a waltz, and Devon led her to the dance floor. His hand settled at her waist, and hers came to rest on his shoulder. As they began to move together, the rest of the gala faded into a blur of light and sound. "You're not running away this time," Teniola whispered, echoing their earlier encounters. Devon's grip tightened slightly. "Not anymore. Not from you." They danced as if they'd done so all their lives, moving together with natural grace. Devon, who usually counted steps and worried about proper form, found himself lost in the moment. The subtle scent of Teniola's perfume, the warmth of her hand in his, the way her eyes sparkled in the chandelier light. Everything combined to create a perfect moment he wished would never end. Across the room, the office conspirators watched with satisfaction. Jenny dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, while Carlos quietly adjusted the lighting to create a more romantic atmosphere. Sophie ensured the waiters kept a respectful distance, creating a bubble of privacy around the dancing couple. As the music flowed from one song to the next, Devon and Teniola remained in their own world. They talked softly of everything and nothing, her latest research breakthroughs, his childhood dreams of changing the world through technology, the small moments that had led them to this dance. "I never thanked you properly," Teniola said during a quiet moment. "For what?" "For reading my research papers, for bringing me to Henry Technologies, for seeing me as more than just another employee." Devon's steps faltered slightly as he looked into her eyes. "How could I see you as anything less than extraordinary?" The music shifted to a slower tempo, and Teniola moved closer, her head coming to rest against his shoulder. Devon's heart thundered in his chest, but for once he didn't feel the need to run or hide behind his corporate mask. "Devon," she whispered, his name a caress on her lips. "I think I'm falling for you." The world seemed to stop. Devon pulled back slightly to look at her, seeing the vulnerability and hope in her eyes. His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing softly across her skin. "I think I fell for you the moment you knocked over my chess set," he admitted, voice rough with emotion. The moment hung between them, electric with possibility. Then a camera flash broke the spell, reminding them of their public setting. Devon glanced around, suddenly aware of the many eyes watching their dance. "Perhaps we could continue this conversation somewhere more private," he suggested, his usual shyness warring with his desire to stay close to her. Teniola nodded, and they made their way to the terrace. The night air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of the garden below. City lights twinkled like earthbound stars, creating a magical backdrop for this moment of truth. They stood at the railing, shoulders touching, neither speaking for a long moment. Then Devon turned to her, gathering his courage. "Teniola," he began, her name a prayer on his lips. "I've spent my life hiding behind spreadsheets and corporate strategies, building walls to protect myself from feeling too much. But you—" He paused, searching for words. "You make me want to tear down every wall, to be more than just the CEO, more than the shy billionaire who runs from connection." She reached up, straightening his bow tie with gentle fingers. "I see you, Devon Henry. Not the CEO, not the billionaire. Just you, and you're more than enough." He caught her hand, pressing it against his chest where his heart raced beneath fine wool and silk. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Not just tonight, but stay. Be more than my head of research. Be my partner, my confidant, my—" "Yes," she breathed, cutting off his words with a finger against his lips. "To all of it. Yes." Devon pulled her close, one hand tangling in her hair as the other curved around her waist. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, full of promise and possibility. Teniola melted against him, her hands gripping his lapels as though anchoring herself to this moment. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, the city continued its dance of lights below them. But everything had changed. The walls around Devon's heart had crumbled completely, replaced by something warmer, brighter, more beautiful than solitude had ever been. Inside, the gala continued. The office conspirators exchanged triumphant glances as they caught glimpses of their CEO and the brilliant doctor on the terrace. Operation Love in the Lab had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. Marcus raised his champagne glass in a subtle toast. Jenny wiped away more happy tears. Carlos adjusted the terrace lighting to create the perfect romantic ambience. And Sophie began planning the perfect breakfast menu for tomorrow's inevitable celebration. But out on the terrace, Devon and Teniola noticed none of this. They were lost in their own world, where corporate titles meant nothing and love meant everything. Their hearts beat in sync as they swayed gently to the distant music, the night wrapping around them like a soft blanket. "We should probably go back inside," Teniola murmured after what could have been minutes or hours. Devon tightened his arms around her. "Just a few more moments," he pleaded softly. "I've waited so long for this, for you. Let me hold on to this perfect moment a little longer." She smiled against his chest, breathing in the subtle scent of his cologne. "We'll have many more perfect moments, Devon. This is just the beginning." He pulled back slightly to look at her, wondering how he'd gotten so lucky. The starlight caught the tears of joy glistening in her eyes, making them sparkle like diamonds. Her lipstick was slightly smudged from their kiss, her hair slightly mussed from his fingers, but she had never looked more beautiful. "Promise?" he asked, his voice carrying all the vulnerability he'd hidden for so long. "Promise," she replied, sealing her words with another gentle kiss. When they finally returned to the gala, their clasped hands told the story better than words could. The office erupted in subtle celebration, knowing looks, raised glasses, and quietly exchanged betting pool winnings. But Devon and Teniola noticed none of it, too lost in each other to care about anything else. They danced again and again until the last notes of music faded away and the last guests departed. The cleaning crew began their work, but Devon and Teniola remained, swaying together in their own private melody. "Stay with me," Devon whispered again, the words holding a lifetime of loneliness and hope. Always, Teniola replied, her head resting perfectly in the crook of his neck. As they finally left the gala, the city seemed different somehow, brighter, more alive with possibility. Their cars remained in the parking garage as they chose to walk together through the quiet streets, neither wanting the night to end. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments of growth and discovery. But tonight, under the starlit sky, two souls who had found each other across crowded rooms and coffee breaks celebrated the beginning of something extraordinary. The office conspirators watched them go, satisfaction warming their hearts. Love had bloomed in their midst, transforming their shy CEO and brilliant doctor into something more. Partners in life, as well as work. Marcus sent one final message to the conspiracy group chat. Mission accomplished. Love has officially entered the lab. And somewhere in the night, Devon Henry held Teniola Bessie close and thanked whatever fate had brought her into his life, knocking over chess pieces and spilling coffee and teaching him that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in laboratories or boardrooms, but in the quiet spaces between two hearts, learning to beat as one. Chapter 6. First Kiss. A late night at the office turned magical when a thunderstorm knocked out the power. The research lab's backup generators hummed to life, bathing everything in a soft, ethereal glow. Devon had been reviewing quarterly reports when darkness swept through the building, followed by the low rumble of thunder. His first thought was of Teniola. He knew she was working late, finalizing data for their breakthrough cardiac regeneration project. Without hesitation, he grabbed his phone for light and made his way to the lab. The emergency lights cast beautiful shadows across her face as she looked up from her microscope. Their eyes met in the dim light, and something electric passed between them. Since the gala, they'd maintained professional distance at work, though every glance held the promise of more. "I wanted to make sure you were all right," Devon said, his voice soft in the darkness. Teniola smiled, removing her lab coat. "My knight in shining Armani," she teased, but her eyes held warmth. Thunder crashed again, closer now, and the backup lights flickered. Devon moved closer, drawn by an invisible force. "Perhaps we should wait it out in my office. The view of the storm would be spectacular." They made their way through the darkened corridors, hands brushing occasionally, each touch sending sparks through them. Devon's office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, offered a breathtaking view of the storm. Lightning illuminated the city in brilliant flashes, casting dramatic shadows across their faces. "It's beautiful," Teniola breathed, moving to stand by the windows. Lightning reflected in her eyes, making them sparkle like stars. Devon couldn't take his eyes off her. "Yes, beautiful," he agreed, though he wasn't looking at the storm. She turned to find him watching her, and the air between them charged with something more powerful than the lightning outside. Devon stepped closer, drawn by the magnetism that had been building between them since that first coffee spill. "Teniola," he whispered, reaching up to cup her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone with infinite tenderness. She leaned into his touch, her hand coming up to cover his. "Devon," she replied, his name a prayer on her lips. The storm raged outside, but in his office time seemed to stop. Devon's other hand found her waist, pulling her closer. Teniola's free hand rested on his chest, feeling his thundering heartbeat beneath fine wool and cotton. "I've wanted to do this since the moment you knocked over my chess set," Devon admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "Then do it," she whispered. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, like the first rays of dawn breaking through night. Devon's hands trembled as they framed her face, treating her like the most precious thing he'd ever held. Teniola melted into him, her fingers curling into his shirt. Lightning flashed again, illuminating them in brilliant white light. When they parted, both were breathing heavily, but neither moved away. Their foreheads rested together, sharing the same air, the same heartbeat. "Stay with me," Devon whispered, vulnerability raw in his voice. "Not just tonight, but stay. Be more than just my head of research. Be my partner, my everything." Teniola pulled back slightly to look into his eyes. What she saw there, love, hope, fear, desire, mirrored everything in her own heart. "Yes," she breathed, "to all of it. Yes." The storm continued its symphony outside, but they created their own music in the darkness. Each kiss was a revelation, each touch an exploration of newfound territory. Devon's legendary shyness melted away in the face of their growing passion, replaced by a tenderness that brought tears to Teniola's eyes. They lost track of time, lost in each other, and the magic of the moment. When the main power finally returned, they barely noticed. The world beyond his office windows could have ceased to exist, and neither would have cared. Eventually, they had to part. The night security guard would be making his rounds soon, and neither wanted their private moment to become office gossip. But something fundamental had changed between them. The careful dance of professional courtesy had transformed into something deeper, more meaningful. "Dinner tomorrow?" Devon asked as they gathered their things. "I could cook for you at my place." Teniola smiled, straightening his now wrinkled tie. "You cook?" "There's a lot you don't know about me, Dr. Bessie," he teased, catching her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. "Let me surprise you." She reached up to touch his face, tracing the smile that seemed permanently etched there now. "You already do. Every day." They parted in the parking garage with one last lingering kiss, both already counting the hours until tomorrow. The storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean and new, much like their hearts. Devon drove home in a daze of happiness, the taste of her kisses still on his lips. For the first time in his life, his penthouse didn't feel empty. Instead, it held the promise of tomorrow, of dinners shared and moments stolen. Across the city, Teniola touched her lips, still feeling the ghost of his kisses. She'd come to Henry Technologies seeking professional advancement, but found something far more precious. A love that defied corporate hierarchies and social expectations. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments of discovery. But tonight, they both fell asleep with smiles on their faces, dreaming of thunderstorms and kisses that tasted like forever. The office would soon be buzzing with news of their romance, but neither cared anymore. They had found something real, something precious, in the darkness of a storm-swept night. Love had bloomed in the labs of Henry Technologies, and nothing would ever be the same. Marcus would tease them mercilessly, of course. The office conspirators would congratulate themselves on their successful matchmaking, but Devon and Teniola were too lost in their own world to notice or care. They had found each other across crowded break rooms and spilled coffee, through thunderstorms and gentle revelations. Their love story was just beginning, but already it felt like the most beautiful experiment ever conducted in the halls of Henry Technologies. The night wrapped around the city like a soft blanket, but two hearts beat with new purpose, new joy. Tomorrow would bring more kisses, more discoveries, more moments of tender exploration. But for now, they dreamed of each other and smiled in their sleep. Love had finally bloomed for the shy billionaire and the brilliant doctor, proving that sometimes the greatest innovations aren't found in laboratories or boardrooms, but in the quiet moments between two hearts learning to beat as one. Chapter 7. Love Blooms. Their romance blossomed like a flower opening to the sun. Devon discovered that love wasn't as frightening as he'd imagined. Each day brought new revelations, new moments of joy that transformed the once lonely CEO into a man who smiled at random moments, lost in happy thoughts. The evening of their first dinner at his penthouse arrived with a mix of anticipation and nervous energy. Devon had spent hours preparing, his usually pristine kitchen now fragrant with herbs and spices. He'd chosen to make his father's secret recipe for coque au vin, a dish he hadn't attempted since James Henry's passing. Teniola arrived precisely at 7, taking his breath away in a simple emerald dress that made her eyes sparkle. She carried a bottle of wine and a shy smile that matched his own nervousness. "Something smells wonderful," she said, as he took her coat, their fingers brushing in a now familiar electric touch. Devon led her to the kitchen, where candles cast a warm glow over the carefully set table. "I hope you like French cuisine," he said, pulling out her chair. "This was my father's favorite recipe." The intimacy of sharing this piece of his past wasn't lost on either of them. As they enjoyed the meal, Devon shared stories of learning to cook at his father's side, of the man who had encouraged his dreams, despite family pressure, to follow a more traditional path. "He would have loved you," Devon said softly, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Your brilliance, your kindness, the way you see past all the trappings of wealth to the person beneath." Teniola squeezed his hand, emotion making her voice rough. "Tell me more about him." They moved to the living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the city lights. Devon pulled her close as they sat on the plush sofa, her head finding that perfect spot on his shoulder that seemed made for her. Hours passed in gentle conversation and tender touches. They shared dreams, fears, hopes for the future. Devon spoke of his loneliness before she entered his life, of the walls he'd built around his heart. Teniola shared her own struggles, the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated field, the pressure to prove herself constantly. As night deepened, their kisses grew more passionate, filled with unspoken desire. Devon's hands trembled as they traced the curve of her spine. Teniola's fingers tangled in his hair, drawing him closer. "Stay," he whispered against her lips. "Stay with me tonight." Her answer was a kiss that spoke volumes, deep and tender and full of promise. They moved together toward his bedroom, where moonlight painted silver patterns across the sheets. Devon's heart thundered as Teniola's dress slipped to the floor, revealing smooth skin and delicate lace. Even in the dim light, he could see the slight tremor in her hands as she reached for his shirt buttons. His own fingers shook as he helped her, each newly revealed inch of skin a revelation. "You're beautiful," he breathed, reverence in his voice. Teniola blushed, the color spreading down her neck to her chest. Devon traced the path with gentle fingers, amazed that this brilliant, beautiful woman had chosen him. Their first time together was tender, unhurried. Devon worshipped every inch of her with touches and kisses, memorizing the sounds she made, the way she arched into his caresses. Teniola explored him with equal devotion, breaking through the last of his carefully constructed walls until there was nothing between them but love and trust. When they finally came together, it was with whispered words of devotion and eyes that never broke contact. The city lights twinkled beyond the windows, but they created their own constellation of touches and sighs, building something beautiful and precious in the darkness. Afterward, they lay tangled in silk sheets, Teniola's head on Devon's chest as he traced patterns on her bare shoulder. The moment felt perfect, complete, in a way neither had experienced before. "I love you," Devon whispered into her hair, the words he'd been holding back finally finding voice. "I think I've loved you since that first day, when you scattered my perfectly arranged life, like those chess pieces." Teniola propped herself up to look at him, tears shining in her eyes. "I love you too," she said softly. "My shy, brilliant man who hides the most beautiful heart behind corporate armor." They made love again as dawn approached, slower this time, savoring every touch, every kiss. The rising sun painted their skin in golden light, blessing their union with its warm rays. When Monday arrived, the office noticed the change in both of them. Devon's smile was more frequent, his usual reserve softened by joy. Teniola practically glowed with happiness, humming softly as she worked in her lab. Marcus took one look at his friend and grinned. "About time," he said, clapping Devon on the shoulder. The office conspirators exchanged knowing looks, their matchmaking efforts having succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. The weeks that followed were filled with quiet joy and growing intimacy. Devon found himself leaving work at reasonable hours, eager to spend evenings with Teniola. They alternated between his penthouse and her cozy apartment, building a life together, one shared meal, one tender moment at a time. Their love grew stronger with each passing day. Devon discovered that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that letting someone into his heart made him stronger rather than more fragile. Teniola flourished under his devotion, her natural brilliance shining even brighter when matched with his unwavering support. The office watched their love story unfold with collective happiness. The betting pools now focused on when Devon would propose, though both he and Teniola were content to let their relationship develop at its own perfect pace. One evening, as they lay together watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, Devon realized something profound. The empire he'd built, the wealth he'd accumulated, none of it meant anything compared to the feeling of holding Teniola in his arms. "Move in with me," he said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I want to wake up with you every morning, fall asleep with you every night." Teniola turned in his arms, eyes shining with love. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. Their kiss was tender, full of promise and dreams of the future. Outside, the city continued its endless dance of light and shadow, but in that moment, their love created its own perfect universe. Devon and Teniola had found something rare and precious in each other. Their love story, born in spilled coffee and scattered chess pieces, had bloomed into something beautiful and strong. The shy billionaire and the brilliant doctor had discovered that sometimes the greatest experiments don't happen in laboratories, but in the quiet moments between two hearts learning to beat as one. As night fell over the city, they held each other close, their hearts full of love and gratitude for the twist of fate that had brought them together. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, new moments of joy. But for now they were content to simply be, wrapped in each other's arms and the certainty of their love. The office conspirators might have set their plan in motion, but love had taken its own perfect course. In the end, it wasn't the elaborate schemes or careful matchmaking that had brought Devon and Teniola together. It was the simple truth of two souls recognizing their perfect match in each other. Their love continued to bloom, growing stronger and more beautiful with each passing day. The shy CEO and the brilliant doctor had found their happy ending, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries aren't made in boardrooms or laboratories, but in the tender space between two hearts that were always meant to find each other. Chapter 8. A Night to Remember. Their first night together was unplanned but perfect. Devon had prepared a candle-lit dinner in his penthouse, soft jazz playing in the background. The city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a magical atmosphere that seemed to exist outside of time. Teniola arrived, wearing a silk dress that caught the candlelight, making her skin glow like polished bronze. Devon's breath caught in his throat at the sight of her, still amazed that this brilliant, beautiful woman had chosen him. "You look stunning," he managed, helping her out of her coat. His fingers brushed the bare skin of her shoulders, sending electricity through both of them. The dinner he'd prepared sat forgotten as their eyes met, the air between them charged with unspoken desire. Devon reached out to touch her face, his hand trembling slightly. "Teniola," he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. She leaned into his touch, her hand coming up to cover his. "Devon," she breathed, and the sound of his name in that tone broke something loose inside him. Their first kiss of the evening was gentle, exploring, but quickly deepened into something more passionate. Devon's hands tangled in her hair as Teniola pressed closer, fitting perfectly against him as though they'd been designed for each other. The soft music enveloped them as they swayed together, barely dancing, more holding each other close. Devon's heart thundered so loudly he was certain she must hear it. The scent of her perfume, mixed with the natural warmth of her skin, made his head spin. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered against her ear, vulnerability raw in his voice. Teniola pulled back slightly to look into his eyes. What she saw there, love, desire, tenderness, mirrored everything in her own heart. "Yes," she breathed, reaching up to trace his jawline with gentle fingers. Devon led her to his bedroom, where moonlight painted silver patterns across silk sheets. His hands trembled as he reached for her, but his touch was sure and gentle. Teniola's fingers worked at his tie, then his shirt buttons, each newly revealed inch of skin a discovery. Her dress slipped to the floor in a whisper of silk, leaving her bathed in moonlight. Devon's breath caught at her beauty, his heart racing with both desire and profound love. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, reverence in his voice. Teniola blushed, the color spreading down her neck to her chest. Devon traced the path with gentle fingers, amazed that this brilliant, beautiful woman had chosen him. Her skin was warm and soft under his touch, like velvet in the moonlight. Their first time together was tender, unhurried. Devon worshipped every inch of her with touches and kisses, memorizing the sounds she made, the way she arched into his caresses. Teniola explored him with equal devotion, breaking through the last of his carefully constructed walls, until there was nothing between them but love and trust. When they finally came together, it was with whispered words of devotion and eyes that never broke contact. The city lights twinkled beyond the windows, but they created their own constellation of touches and sighs, building something beautiful and precious in the darkness. Afterward, they lay tangled in silk sheets, Teniola's head on Devon's chest as he traced patterns on her bare shoulder. The moment felt perfect, complete in a way neither had experienced before. "I love you," Devon whispered into her hair, the words carrying all the emotion in his heart. "I never knew love could feel like this." Teniola lifted her head to look at him, tears shining in her eyes. "I love you too," she said softly, "my shy, brilliant man who holds the most beautiful heart." They made love again as dawn approached, slower this time, savoring every touch, every kiss. The rising sun painted their skin in golden light, blessing their union with its warm rays. Dawn found them still awake, wrapped in each other's arms, neither wanting to sleep and end this perfect night. Devon played with Teniola's hair, marveling at how natural this felt, how right. "Move in with me," he said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I want every morning to be like this one." Teniola propped herself up on an elbow to look at him, love shining in her eyes. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Devon replied, pulling her close. "You've made my house feel like a home for the first time. Stay, make it our home." Her answer was a kiss that spoke volumes, deep and tender and full of promise. They lost themselves in each other again as the sun rose fully, painting the room in shades of gold and rose. Later, as they shared coffee and gentle kisses in his kitchen, both knew that something fundamental had changed. The careful dance of professional courtesy and growing romance had transformed into something deeper, more profound. "I should get ready for work," Teniola said reluctantly, though she made no move to leave Devon's embrace. He tightened his arms around her. "Take the day off with me," he suggested. "We can stay here, order in, just be together." The smile she gave him was radiant. The great Devon Henry suggesting playing hooky, what would the board say? They'd say it's about time their workaholic CEO found something more important than quarterly reports, he replied, kissing her softly. They spent the day in a bubble of joy, alternating between tender lovemaking and intimate conversation. Devon ordered their favorite foods, and they picnicked on his balcony, feeding each other bites and stealing kisses. As evening approached again, reality began to seep back in. They would need to return to the office tomorrow, maintain professional distance despite their deepened connection. "We should set some ground rules," Teniola said, curled against Devon's chest on the sofa. "For work." He nodded, playing with her fingers. "No displays of affection in the office. Keep things professional." "Exactly, though." She smiled mischievously. "The break room might need to remain our special place." Devon laughed, the sound full of joy. "I'll never look at that coffee machine the same way again." As night fell over the city once more, they lay together in his bed, wrapped in each other and the certainty of their love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments of having to balance their professional and personal lives. But for now, they were content to simply be, holding each other close and dreaming of all the nights to come. Their love had bloomed into something beautiful and strong, a force more powerful than corporate success or scientific breakthrough. The shy billionaire and the brilliant doctor had found something rare and precious in each other. Their story, born in spilled coffee and scattered chess pieces, had evolved into a love that would last a lifetime. Devon pulled Teniola closer, breathing in her scent, amazed at how perfectly she fit in his arms. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing past the shy CEO to the man beneath, for being patient with my awkwardness, for loving me." Teniola kissed him softly. "Thank you for letting me in, for showing me that the most beautiful discoveries aren't made in laboratories, but in moments like these." They drifted to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, their hearts beating in perfect sync. Outside, the city continued its endless dance of light and shadow, but in that room, two souls had found their perfect match, their forever home in each other's love. Chapter 9. Storm Clouds. The morning brought unexpected complications. Devon woke to his phone buzzing incessantly with notifications. Someone had leaked photos of him and Teniola at the gala to the tabloids, and the headlines were vicious. "Henry Technologies CEO's secret romance with employee," screamed one. "Gold digger doctor seduces billionaire boss," declared another. Devon's hands shook as he scrolled through the articles. Each one twisted their beautiful love story into something tawdry and cheap. His protective instincts surged. He needed to shield Teniola from this ugliness. Eleanor Henry's call came just as he was about to phone Teniola. "Darling," his mother's voice dripped with carefully controlled concern. "Have you seen the newspapers?" "Mother, I can explain." "Devon, you know I only want what's best for you. But this could damage the company's reputation. The board won't look kindly on a CEO dating an employee, especially one who—" "Don't!" Devon cut her off, anger making his voice sharp. "Don't you dare say anything against Teniola." Eleanor sighed. "I'm just concerned about appearances, darling. Perhaps if she transferred to another company, there are several excellent research facilities that would be happy to have someone of her qualifications." The suggestion felt like a physical blow. "I won't ask her to give up her work. The research she's doing here is groundbreaking." "Then perhaps you should consider whether this dalliance is worth the risk to everything you've built." After hanging up, Devon sat in his darkened bedroom, mind racing. The company's PR team was already calling, wanting to discuss damage control strategies. The board would be meeting tomorrow to address the situation. His phone lit up with a text from Teniola. "We need to talk." He found her in her lab, still beautiful despite the dark circles under her eyes that spoke of a sleepless night. She held up her tablet, showing him more headlines. "Your mother called me this morning." Devon's heart sank. "Whatever she said, she offered to arrange a position for me at Johns Hopkins." Teniola's voice was carefully neutral. "Said it would be better for everyone if I quietly disappeared from your life." "I'll handle her," Devon promised, reaching for Teniola's hand. But she stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. "Maybe she's right," Teniola said softly. "Look at what this is doing to your reputation, to the company." "I don't care about my reputation," Devon insisted. "I care about you." "But you should care. This company is your life's work, your father's legacy. I won't be the reason it's damaged." Devon felt his world tilting on its axis. "Don't do this. Don't let them win." Tears shimmered in Teniola's eyes. "I think we need some space. Time to think about what this means for both our futures." She turned away, shoulders rigid with suppressed emotion. Devon stood frozen, watching the woman he loved withdraw behind professional courtesy. His heart screamed to go after her, but his feet remained rooted to the spot. The next few days were torture. They maintained careful distance at work, their only interactions strictly professional. The office watched in dismay as their beautiful romance seemed to unravel. Devon threw himself into damage control, working with PR to manage the media storm. But his heart wasn't in it. Everything felt hollow without Teniola's smile, her gentle teasing, her way of making him feel like more than just a successful CEO. The nights were worse. He lay awake in his massive bed, surrounded by luxury, but feeling poorer than he'd ever been. The memory of their passionate nights together haunted him, the softness of her skin, the way she'd whispered his name, the perfect feeling of completeness when she was in his arms. Marcus found him in his office late one night, staring at the chess set that had started everything. "You're both miserable," his friend observed. "Why are you letting other people destroy your happiness?" "I don't know how to fix this," Devon admitted. "Every time I try to reach out, she withdraws further." "Then fight for her," Marcus said simply. "The Devon Henry I know doesn't give up on what matters." But before Devon could act on this advice, another blow fell. During a routine audit, evidence emerged that someone had been leaking confidential company information to competitors. All signs pointed to the research division. The board immediately suspected Teniola, citing the convenient timing of her relationship with Devon. They demanded a full investigation, suggesting she be suspended pending the results. Devon's world shattered. The thought of anyone suspecting Teniola of corporate espionage was ridiculous, but the evidence seemed compelling. His mother's voice echoed in his head. "Can you be sure she didn't get close to you for access to company secrets?" He refused to believe it. The woman he loved was incapable of such betrayal, but doubt, once planted, grew like a weed in the garden of his heart. Teniola faced the accusations with dignity, but Devon could see the pain in her eyes. The trust they'd built seemed to crack under the weight of suspicion and corporate politics. Late one night, unable to sleep, Devon reviewed the security footage himself. Something about the timeline bothered him. Hours of careful analysis revealed discrepancies that the initial investigation had missed. The truth emerged in fragments. Someone had carefully fabricated evidence to frame Teniola. But who would go to such lengths to destroy their relationship? As Devon dug deeper, a pattern emerged. The leaked photos, the planted evidence, the careful manipulation of public opinion, all pointed to a single orchestrator. Someone who stood to gain from his continued solitude, someone who had access to both corporate and personal information. The revelation, when it came, felt like a physical blow. His own Aunt Margaret had engineered the entire scheme. She'd been pushing for a merger with her husband's company for years, a deal that would have been complicated by Devon's relationship with Teniola. Armed with the truth, Devon faced a choice. He could expose his aunt's machinations, preserving Teniola's reputation, but risking a family scandal that would rock the corporate world. Or he could find another way to protect the woman he loved while keeping the ugly truth buried. The answer came to him as he stood in his office, holding the White Queen from that fateful chess set. Some things were worth any price. Some loves demanded courage above caution. Tomorrow he would stand before the board and fight for his future, not just as CEO, but as a man in love. Tonight, though, he had another battle to wage. Devon drove through the rain-slicked streets to Teniola's apartment, his heart pounding with purpose. He had to make her understand that their love was worth fighting for, worth any scandal or corporate upheaval, because in the end, all his wealth, all his success meant nothing without her by his side. The shy billionaire had finally found something worth being brave for, a love that transcended corporate politics and family expectations. The night stretched ahead, full of possibilities and the chance for redemption. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage came not in boardrooms or laboratories, but in the simple act of fighting for love. Chapter 10. Truth and Trust. The truth emerged during a board meeting that would change everything. Devon stood at the head of the conference table, his usual corporate mask replaced by quiet fury. The evidence he'd gathered lay before him, proof of his Aunt Margaret's manipulation and betrayal. "Before we continue with these baseless accusations against Dr. Bessie," he began, his voice carrying an authority that silenced the room, "I have something to share." The presentation was devastating in its thoroughness. Email trails, bank transfers, surveillance footage, all pointing to Margaret's elaborate scheme to separate Devon from Teniola. The board watched in stunned silence as he methodically exposed every manipulation, every carefully planted piece of evidence. Teniola sat at the far end of the table, her face a study in controlled emotion as she learned the full extent of the plot against her. The relief in her eyes at having her name cleared warred with hurt at the depth of the deception. "My aunt," Devon continued, his voice tight with controlled anger, "orchestrated this entire situation. The leaked photos, the false evidence of corporate espionage, all of it was designed to force a wedge between me and Dr. Bessie. Her ultimate goal was to push through a merger with her husband's company, a deal that would have been complicated by my relationship with Teniola." Margaret, sitting midway down the table, had grown progressively paler as Devon spoke. "Now, Devon, surely you understand I was only thinking of the company's best interests." "The company's interests." Devon's laugh held no humor. "Or your own. The merger you proposed would have given you controlling interest in 3 key divisions. You weren't protecting Henry Technologies. You were trying to steal it." The board erupted in chaos. Questions flew, accusations were hurled, and through it all Devon maintained his position at the head of the table, a quiet pillar of righteous anger. "Doctor, Bessie's research is revolutionizing cardiac care," he continued once the initial uproar had died down. "Her work will save countless lives. But more than that, she represents everything this company should stand for: innovation, integrity, and the courage to fight for what's right." His eyes found Teniola's across the table. "I love her," he said simply, "and if anyone here has a problem with that, you're welcome to tender your resignation." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Marcus, who had been unusually quiet throughout the meeting, stood up. "I move that we accept Margaret Henry's immediate resignation from the board, pending a full investigation into her activities." The motion passed unanimously. As security escorted Margaret from the building, Devon finally allowed himself to breathe. The truth was out. But would it be enough to repair the damage done to his relationship with Teniola? He found her in her lab later that evening, after the dust had begun to settle. She stood by the window, silhouetted against the setting sun, more beautiful than ever in her moment of vindication. I'm so sorry, Devon said softly. I should have trusted you, should have fought harder. Teniola turned to face him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Why didn't you tell me what you suspected? Why investigate alone? I needed to be certain, needed to have irrefutable proof before I exposed my own family member, but I never should have let you suffer through those accusations alone. He stepped closer, drawn by the magnetic pull that had always existed between them. I love you, Teniola. These past weeks without you, I've been lost. My life, my success, none of it means anything without you to share it with. She moved toward him, closing the distance between them. I love you too, she whispered. But love isn't just about grand gestures and dramatic revelations. It's about trust, about facing challenges together. I know, Devon's voice was rough with emotion. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I understand that now. That I'll always choose you, always fight for us, always trust in what we have. Their kiss was gentle at first, a reaffirmation of their connection. Then it deepened, became something more urgent, more passionate. All the pain and loneliness of their separation poured into that kiss, transforming into something beautiful and healing. Devon's hands trembled as they cupped her face. Come home, he whispered against her lips. Come back to me. Teniola's answer was another kiss, one that spoke of forgiveness and renewed trust. They left the lab together, hands intertwined, hearts beating in sync once more. The drive to Devon's penthouse was charged with anticipation. Every red light was a chance to steal kisses, every touch electric with renewed passion. By the time they reached his door, both were breathing heavily, desperate to reconnect on every level. Inside, Devon took his time undressing her, pressing kisses to each inch of skin he revealed. I missed you so much, he breathed against her neck. Every night without you felt endless. Teniola's fingers worked at his buttons, equally eager to feel his skin against hers. Show me, she whispered. Show me how much you missed me. Their lovemaking was intense, a perfect blend of passion and tenderness. Devon worshipped her body as if rediscovering a precious treasure, memorizing every sound she made, every way she moved against him. Teniola matched his passion with her own, their bodies remembering this perfect dance even after weeks apart. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets and each other, Devon traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Marry me, he said softly. Teniola propped herself up to look at him. What? Marry me, he repeated, more confident now. I know it might seem sudden, but these weeks apart showed me something important. I don't want to waste another moment. I want to spend my life with you, face every challenge together, share every joy and triumph. Tears sparkled in Teniola's eyes. Are you sure? After everything that's happened? I've never been more sure of anything, Devon said, pulling her closer. Everything that happened only proved what I already knew. You're the most important part of my life, my heart, my home. Her kiss was answer enough, but she whispered yes against his lips anyway. They made love again, slower this time, celebrating their reunion and their future together. As dawn painted the sky in gentle colors, they lay wrapped in each other's arms, planning their life together. The company would need restructuring after Margaret's betrayal, but neither was worried. Together, they could face any challenge. The office celebrated when they announced their engagement the next day. Marcus hugged them both, while the original conspirators who had worked so hard to bring them together wiped away happy tears. It was worth the wait, Devon said softly, watching Teniola share their news with her research team. Every moment of pain, every challenge, it brought us here. Teniola turned to smile at him, love shining in her eyes. And here is exactly where we're meant to be. The shy billionaire and the brilliant doctor had found their way back to each other, their love stronger for having been tested. Together, they would build something beautiful. A marriage, a legacy, a future filled with love and trust. Because sometimes the greatest experiments don't happen in laboratories, and the most valuable discoveries aren't made in boardrooms. Sometimes they happen in the quiet moments between two hearts that were always meant to find each other, always meant to overcome every obstacle to be together. Devon pulled Teniola close, breathing in her familiar scent. They had faced their storm and emerged stronger. Now it was time to build their future, one day at a time, together. Chapter 11. Coming Home. Their reconciliation took place in the privacy of Devon's office after hours. The city lights twinkled beyond his windows, creating an intimate atmosphere in the space that had witnessed so much of their love story. Devon stood before Teniola, holding not a ring, but the white queen from the chess set she'd knocked over the day they met. "You scattered all my pieces that day," he said softly, turning the chess piece in his hands, "and then helped me put them back together in a better way. I love you, Teniola Bessie, my heart, my queen." Teniola's eyes glistened with tears as she watched him kneel before her. The mighty CEO, known for his shyness and reserve, was laying his heart bare without hesitation. "These past weeks without you have been the darkest of my life," Devon continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I thought I knew loneliness before, but being apart from you taught me what true emptiness feels like." He held up the white queen, moonlight catching on its polished surface. "This piece has been a symbol of our story from the beginning. That first day when our hands touched picking it up, I felt something I'd never experienced before, hope, possibility, the chance for a love I never thought I'd find." Teniola reached out to touch the chess piece, her fingers brushing his. "Devon," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Let me finish," he pleaded softly. "I need you to know everything in my heart. When my aunt's manipulation threatened to tear us apart, I made the mistake of trying to fight that battle alone. I was so focused on protecting you that I forgot the most important thing: we're stronger together." He took her hand, pressing the chess piece into her palm. "I don't want to make that mistake again. Whatever challenges come our way, I want to face them with you by my side, not just as my love, but as my partner in everything." Standing, he pulled her close, one hand cupping her face while the other covered hers, both of them holding the white queen between their palms. "Marry me, Teniola. Be my queen in every way. Let me spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me." Tears spilled down Teniola's cheeks as she looked into his eyes. The love she saw there, the absolute certainty, took her breath away. "Yes," she breathed. 1,000 times, yes. Devon's kiss was gentle at first, filled with reverence and joy. Then Teniola pressed closer, deepening the kiss, pouring all her love and longing into the connection. The chess piece dropped forgotten to the carpet as their arms wrapped around each other, neither willing to let go. "I missed you so much," Teniola whispered against his lips. "Every day felt incomplete without you." Devon's hands trembled as they framed her face. "Never again," he promised. "No more separations, no more doubts, just us, together, always." Their kisses grew more passionate, weeks of separation fueling their need to reconnect. Devon backed her gently against his desk, lifting her to sit on its edge. Papers scattered, but neither cared about the disorder. Teniola's fingers worked at his tie, then the buttons of his shirt, needing to feel his skin against hers. Devon's hands shook as he helped her, each newly revealed inch of skin a revelation. When she ran her nails lightly down his chest, he shuddered, a low moan escaping his throat. "Take me home," she whispered, her voice heavy with desire. "Make me yours again." The drive to his penthouse was torture. Every red light an opportunity for heated kisses and wandering hands. By the time they reached his door, both were breathing heavily, desperate to reconnect on every level. Inside, Devon took his time undressing her, pressing kisses to each inch of skin he revealed. The sight of her in the moonlight took his breath away. She was more beautiful than ever, her skin glowing like polished bronze in the soft light. "You're so beautiful," he breathed, reverence in his voice. His hands shook as they traced the curves of her body, memorizing every detail he'd missed during their separation. Teniola's own hands weren't idle, exploring him with equal devotion. When she pressed kisses to his chest, right over his thundering heart, Devon thought he might die from the tenderness of the gesture. Their lovemaking was intense, a perfect blend of passion and tenderness. Devon worshipped her body as if rediscovering a precious treasure, memorizing every sound she made, every way she moved against him. Teniola matched his passion with her own, their bodies remembering this perfect dance even after weeks apart. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets and each other, Devon traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "I want to make it official tomorrow," he said softly. "No long engagement. Let's start our life together properly." Teniola propped herself up to look at him, love shining in her eyes. "Are you sure? Most people would say that's moving too fast." "We've wasted enough time," Devon replied, pulling her closer. "I want to fall asleep with you every night, wake up with you every morning. I want to build our future together, starting now." Her answer was a kiss that spoke volumes, deep and tender and full of promise. They made love again as dawn approached, slower this time, savoring every touch, every moment of connection. The morning sun found them still awake, wrapped in each other, and plans for their future. Devon had already texted Marcus, asking him to handle the day's meetings. Nothing was more important than this. Lying in bed with his fiancée, planning their life together. "We should have a small ceremony," Teniola suggested, tracing patterns on his chest. "Just close friends and family." Devon nodded, playing with her hair. "Whatever you want, as long as I get to call you my wife at the end of it." They spent the morning in bed, alternating between passionate lovemaking and quiet conversation. Devon ordered breakfast to be delivered, and they fed each other bites between kisses, neither willing to break physical contact for long. When they finally emerged from the bedroom, it was late afternoon. Devon led Teniola to his study, where he kept a small safe hidden behind a painting. Inside was a velvet box containing his grandmother's ring, a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "I've had this for weeks," he admitted, sliding the ring onto her finger. "I was planning to propose before everything happened. It seems right that you should have it now." Teniola admired how the stones caught the light, but more than that, she treasured the meaning behind them. This was a family heirloom, a symbol of Devon's absolute commitment to their future together. They spent the rest of the day making plans. Devon called his mother, who surprised them both by expressing genuine joy at their engagement. Eleanor Henry had seen the change in her son, how love had transformed him from a shy recluse into a man who fought for what mattered. The office celebrated when they announced their news the next day. Marcus hugged them both, while the original conspirators who had worked so hard to bring them together wiped away happy tears. "It was worth the wait," Devon said softly, watching Teniola share their news with her research team. "Every moment of pain, every challenge, it brought us here." Teniola turned to smile at him, love shining in her eyes. "And here is exactly where we're meant to be." That evening, they returned to Devon's penthouse, soon to be their home together. As they stood on the balcony watching the sunset, Devon held Teniola close, breathing in her familiar scent. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair. "For what?" "For knocking over my chess set that first day. For being patient with my shyness. For loving me enough to come back after everything that happened. For saying yes." Teniola turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. Thank you for fighting for us, for not letting fear or doubt or manipulation keep us apart, for seeing me as more than just an employee or a beautiful face, for loving all of me." Their kiss was tender, full of promise and dreams of the future. The city continued its endless dance below them, but they were lost in their own perfect world of love and trust. The shy billionaire and the brilliant doctor had found their way back to each other, their love stronger for having been tested. Together, they would build something beautiful, a marriage, a legacy, a future filled with love and trust. Because sometimes the greatest experiments don't happen in laboratories, and the most valuable discoveries aren't made in boardrooms. Sometimes they happen in the quiet moments between two hearts that were always meant to find each other, always meant to overcome every obstacle to be together. Devon held his fiancée close, marveling at how perfectly she fit in his arms. They had faced their storm and emerged stronger. Now it was time to build their future, one day at a time. Together, forever. Chapter 12. Double Blessings. The morning sun streamed through the hospital windows, casting a golden glow over Teniola as she held their newborn twin boys. Devon sat beside her bed, overwhelmed by the perfect beauty of this moment. His family, a word that had once held such loneliness, now filled his heart with indescribable joy. "They're perfect," he whispered, gently touching each tiny face. The twins, just hours old, had their mother's beautiful complexion and their father's dark eyes. One gripped Devon's finger with surprising strength, while the other slept peacefully in Teniola's arms. The past months had been a whirlwind of joy. Their intimate wedding in the botanical gardens, surrounded by only their closest friends and family, had been everything they dreamed of. Devon, who once stumbled over simple conversations with women, had delivered his vows with tears of joy streaming down his face, his voice never wavering as he promised Teniola his heart for eternity. Finding out about the twins had been another magical moment. Devon had fainted when Teniola showed him the ultrasound, much to Marcus's eternal amusement. The months that followed were filled with tender moments, Devon talking to Teniola's growing belly each night, singing soft lullabies his father had once sung to him, planning every detail of the nursery with meticulous care. Now, holding his sons, Devon felt his heart might burst with love. He looked at Teniola, radiant despite her exhaustion, and saw his whole world in her smile. "What should we name them?" she asked softly, adjusting the baby in her arms. Devon smiled, remembering their conversations about names. "James," he said, touching the twin who held his finger. "After my father." The baby seemed to respond to the name, gripping tighter. "And Alexander," Teniola added, looking at the sleeping twin. "After my grandfather." The names they'd chosen honored both their families, bridging past and future in these precious new lives. Devon leaned down to kiss her forehead. "I used to think being alone meant being safe," he whispered, "but you showed me that being vulnerable takes more courage than hiding." Teniola smiled up at him, tears of joy sparkling in her eyes. "And you showed me that sometimes the quietest hearts love the loudest." The twins stirred, as if sensing the depth of emotion in the room. Little Alexander opened his eyes, revealing the same soulful gaze as his father. James made a soft cooing sound that melted both his parents' hearts. Marcus poked his head in, grinning at the sight of his best friend's perfect family. "The office is going crazy waiting for news," he said. "Jenny's already planning the world's most elaborate baby shower, even though it's a bit late for that." Devon laughed, remembering how their office family had championed their love from the beginning. "Tell them all is perfect. Beyond perfect." As Marcus left, Devon settled carefully onto the bed beside Teniola, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, their twins cradled between them, creating a perfect circle of love. I never imagined this kind of happiness was possible, Devon said softly, watching his son's peaceful faces. A beautiful wife who sees past all my walls, 2 perfect sons, a future filled with love and joy. We've come so far from scattered chess pieces and spilled coffee, Teniola teased gently, though her eyes shone with equal happiness. Those were just the first moves in the most beautiful game, Devon replied, kissing her softly. One we'll play forever, together. Outside the window, the city bustled with life. But in that hospital room, time seemed to stand still, a family bound by love, strengthened by trust, blessed with twin miracles. It was more than a shy billionaire had ever dared to dream. Devon Henry, once known only for his wealth and reclusiveness, now held a fortune greater than any corporate success, the love of a brilliant woman who had crashed into his perfectly ordered life and scattered all his pieces into a more beautiful pattern. As the sun painted golden patterns across their family tableau, Devon and Teniola shared a look of pure joy. Their love story, born in chaos and strengthened through challenges, had blossomed into something more precious than either could have imagined. The twins slept peacefully, unaware that they were the newest characters in an epic love story, one that proved that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in laboratories or boardrooms, but in the quiet spaces between 2 hearts that were always meant to find each other. I love you, Devon whispered, his voice rough with emotion. All of you, more than I ever thought possible. We love you too, Teniola replied softly, our shy, brilliant man with the most beautiful heart. As evening approached, casting the room in soft purple light, the new family remained wrapped in their bubble of joy. The world outside could wait. For now, they had everything they needed, each other, their precious twins, and a love that had transformed a lonely empire into a kingdom of joy. And so the story of the shy billionaire and the brilliant doctor found its most beautiful chapter yet, not an ending, but a new beginning. Because true love stories never really end. They just keep growing more beautiful with each passing day. In that quiet hospital room, surrounded by the miracle of new life and endless love, Devon and Teniola held their future in their arms. Their hearts beat in perfect synchronization, a 4-part harmony of family, love, trust, and joy that would only grow stronger with each passing day. The end.